Marvel's on top of the comic book movie world right now, but there's still one or two things that DC does just a tiny bit better. Let's discuss. Hey movie fans, so I like both Marvel and DC movies right now. They just continue to be enjoyable pieces of cinema that I just enjoy getting excited for every few months. Marvel continually just churns out great movie after great movie, with a few exceptions. Since 2008 with Iron Man, DC has not gone off to a strong of footing. I have faith that eventually DC will get it right. However, despite Marvel's dominance, there's still, I believe, 5 things that DC movies actually do a better job than Marvel movies. So, what can Marvel learn from the world of DC? Well, first of all, number 5, DC does a better job of making the ordinary person the heroic person. What do I mean by that? There's various times in DC movies, starting all the way back with Man of Steel, because that was so long ago, 5 years, starting all the way back with Man of Steel, that the ordinary person is shown doing heroic things, not just the main hero. Take, for example, in Man of Steel, when the whole city of Metropolis is being destroyed, which so much destruction, there's a fantastic scene where Jenny Olsen, yes, her name was Jenny Olsen, then she got retconned into Jimmy Olsen, who ended up dying in Batman v Superman. It's a weird ramble for another day, but Jenny Olsen is stuck under a whole bunch of rubble that she can't escape from. She got trapped under like part of a building or something, and the other people that work at the Daily Planet with her, including Perry White and that dude that I can't remember, they all stick with her to try and get her out of this rubble, try and save her, and even when they see that basically they may not make it out of this, they stay with her, choosing to die with her, than just kind of leave her for dead. There's great moments like that in Man of Steel. Flash forward to Wonder Woman, DC's like only so far surefire everyone likes this movie. You got the final act, spoiler alert, you have ordinary guy Steve Trevor piloting the plane full of explosives to get it away from the battlefield, sacrificing himself in the end. An ordinary person making the sacrifice. Marvel, I love Marvel, but it always comes down to the main hero, which makes sense naturally in a comic book movie. But DC, it's kind of refreshing to see ordinary people reflected well in a movie. Again, flashing back to Man of Steel, you had the military actively helping Superman. In fact, they make quite a few critical plays in the fight against Zod. They're ordinary people doing extraordinary things. At number 4, we have one that Marvel admittedly does do, but they took a lot longer than DC is doing. DC, right off the bat, was willing to embrace the weirder or more difficult concepts in comic books. Marvel, yeah, they're getting there now with magic and mysticism with Doctor Strange, whereas DC's just like, nope, we're going all in with the weird stuff right from the get-go. You had all the stuff on Krypton with Man of Steel, which could be kind of out there. Suicide Squad, you had Enchantress, someone that deals solely with magic and weirdness and mysticism as your main antagonist. You had Wonder Woman talking about the old gods with Zeus and everything else. Then you got the new gods in Justice League. Heck, the next movie after Aquaman, which Aquaman itself is kind of an out there concept. The next movie after Aquaman for DC is Shazam, a kid that says Shazam and turns into a superhero using the powers of the old gods. If that's not kind of an out there concept, yes, Marvel's kind of getting there, but it took them quite a long time. They kind of had to stay in their comfort zone for a while with kind of more traditional comic book movies, whereas DC's just like, nope, this stuff's weird in the comics, we're going to bring the weird stuff in now. At number 3, we have one that's going to divide some people, but for me personally, I think DC has better love interests. There's not a single romantic relationship in the Marvel Universe that I particularly care about. I know a lot of people gravitate towards Tony Stark and Pepper Potts. I've never really been a big Pepper Potts fan in the movie universe. I don't know if it's just I don't like Gwyneth Paltrow or what it is. I didn't really care about their relationship. And then you had Natalie Portman and Thor. I know her name's Jane Foster, but yeah, you just know it as Natalie Portman and Thor. Other than that, there's really not that many strong romantic relationships. I mean, that might change with Ant-Man and the Wasp, which looks like a pretty solid like team up romantically, but all the other couples I don't really know about. Whereas Superman and Lois, admittedly, it's not the strongest, but I felt like some form of a connection there. I felt like, okay, this feels like Lois and Superman that I know and love. But the real couple, the real power couple that I kind of give the edge to more than anything else was Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor. That felt like a genuine human relationship that had some growth. You felt for the characters. You felt genuinely sad when Steve died, even though there's rumor that he's in Wonder Woman 2. I don't know. But the romantic relationships, I feel a little bit more attached to. Granted, there still isn't a standout one besides Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, but I think I feel a little bit more for the DC couples than I do with Marvel. And then again, that might change in the future, but for now, I think DC has better romantic relationships. At number 2, we have more of a distinct visual style and tone. You can argue till you're blue in the face whether it's a good tone for you personally. Me, it's hit or miss. Sometimes it really works for me, sometimes it doesn't. Whereas DC, though, whenever you're watching a DC movie, you know for a fact you're watching a DC movie just by watching the visuals of it, of how it's shot, the color palette, how the action scenes are shot. It all feels like a DC movie, kind of giving it its own visual identity, which I think is kind of cool. Marvel, I love Marvel movies to death, but they all still kind of just have that generic feel to them. If you take away the superheroes, they're just every other action movie from a visual filmmaking standpoint. They don't have anything really that makes them stand out aside from their superheroes. They kind of play it safe in terms of how things are visually represented on the screen. From the color palette, not really popping out like it could. Justice League, you could argue whether it's good or bad, but the visuals, it looks like a comic book movie. It feels like a comic book movie. Marvel, yeah, it feels like a good action movie, but at no point do I ever feel like I'm watching a comic book movie from a visual storytelling standpoint, if that makes any sense. Say what you want about the quality of DC films, but there's no denying that they can have an easily identifiable, okay, that's a DC movie just by seeing the visual style, how it's presented, whereas Marvel is more just, this is a great movie, make no mistake about that. But take away the comic book characters, would you still know it's a comic book movie? And I guess, at the end of the day, is that really that important? Depends what you want in a comic book movie, but for me, I kind of like the visual aesthetics of seeing a comic book movie come to life at times, so long as it doesn't usurp the story, which admittedly, DC, sometimes the visuals do overpower the story, whereas Marvel, the story takes care of the visuals. If we can find a happy medium, I think both studios could do that. Could find a happy medium of very, very cool comic book visuals and color palette and the way that things are shot with a good story. I think those two could be blended well. And the number one best thing that DC absolutely is destroying Marvel at right now is their music. The scores for all the DC movies, well, Suicide Squad excluded, which we're all kind of excluding Suicide Squad from just about everything nowadays. Thanks Jared Leto's Joker for that, and everything else in that movie. But by and large, almost every movie in the DC universe so far has had a phenomenal soundtrack, and there's pieces of music that you can easily identify. You know the new Man of Steel theme. You know the new Wonder Woman's theme by the whole guitar riff. You remember the music, and you felt the music in No Man's Land when Wonder Woman first shows humanity who she is and what she's here for. You feel the music so much more in DC movies than you do in Marvel movies, which there's been a ton of great video essays of Marvel's use of music. They're just kind of there as background music. They're never there to complement the scene. That's why, other than the Avengers tune, which was used in the first Avengers movie, and then I guess is being picked up again now for this new Avengers, which was completely absent of Age of Ultron, that Avengers tune is really the only standout piece of music that they've done. Name another Marvel song besides the Avengers theme that you could easily identify and hum along with. Whereas, like I said, DC, you know the new Man of Steel theme, you know the Wonder Woman theme. You feel the music more in a DC movie, and I think they've had better people working on the music, and that's not to say they've had bad people working on Marvel music. But you had Hans Zimmer doing the music for Man of Steel, and Rupert Gregson Williams for Wonder Woman, who has done some phenomenal music like Chronicles of Narnia. And then I know some people are kind of on the fence, but I love Danny Elfman's score for Justice League. You feel all the music. It's powerful music. It really adds to the layers of the character of, yes, this sounds like how a character should be. Even if I disagree with how some characters are being portrayed on the big screen in the world of DC, from an auditory standpoint, I go, yeah, I can get behind this. DC understands character themes, and this character sounds like this character sounds like this. Ultimately, I'd like to see Marvel adopt the same thing. Well, what do you guys think? How crazy have I been today? Is there anything at all do you think that DC does better than Marvel? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you're seeing and want to see more, subscribe to the channel, or find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Uncharted Media. Stay sharp, movie guys and gals.